Hour 2 Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker up on TSN 4. Bryan Hayes, Dave Feschuk of the Toronto Star. Jay's off tonight, back in action tomorrow night. The Angels will be here. Shohei Ohtani will be here. He's doing it again, Dave.
Oh, my God.
So this guy pitches a complete game, one-hit shutout in game one of the doubleheader.
Yeah.
And in the afternoon, the nightcap, he just hit his league-leading 37th home run to break that game open. The Angels are running away from the Tigers. And that means, because generally what happens with doubleheaders, especially during the week, with an awful team like Detroit, is it's if you get in the building, stay in the building.
Oh, yeah.
Right? The tickets are good for both games.
Oh, yeah.
There is 100% multiple people in that stadium that saw him pitch a one-hitter, no complete game this morning, or early this afternoon.
Yeah.
And just witness this guy hit a home run the same day.
Incredible.
It's incredible.
We should be in Detroit right now. What are we doing here?
It's the best ticket in pro sports.
It would have been the best idea.
Yeah. It's too bad you got to watch the Tigers.
Yeah.
You know, the whole Tigers part of it kind of stinks.
Who cares about the Tigers?
Nobody cares about the Tigers. But you talk about a trivia moment. You talk about telling your grandkids.
Yeah.
I saw this guy pitch and hit a bomb in the same day in the same seat.
He's leading the major leagues as a pitcher in opposing batting average. Nobody's hitting worse against any pitcher in the major leagues than this guy. They're hitting against this guy. And he's leading the major leagues in home runs. I mean, it's just, it's unfathomable. Like,
this guy's going to hit 50-plus home runs. By September, we'll probably be talking 60.
Talking 60.
Probably talking 60.
That's the other reason you don't trade him, because he could break Aaron Judge's American League record.
Right.
You know, he's on pace pretty much. But
yeah.
How about this, though? Like, think about the way he is putting every other professional athlete to shame on the planet. Like, a guy throws a complete game, 111 pitch, one hitter. And what are most guys doing? They're doing the cold tub, the massage, the
or load
recovery
management.
routine.
I'm out.
Load management, yeah. Like protein shakes, acupuncture, arm care, voodoo. This guy's like, no, give me a bat.
Yeah.
I'm good.
I'll go opposite way.
Like
that's the best part about it. It's an opposite way home run.
After he just pitched 9 innings.
You know how hard that is to, like, you're a little bit late. You got to have a lot of power to push that ball.
Oh, no kidding.
And you'd think he'd be exhausted.
You'd think.
No.
Doesn't look
all
too
good.
hard.
I'll spray this wherever I have to.
Doesn't look too tired.
It's incredible, man. From that standpoint, from a business standpoint, obviously it makes sense where the Angels are at, and they're going to win this game, which means they're going to come up to Toronto. They're going to be 3 games back.
3 games back.
3 games back of the Jays. Still chasing the Yankees. Still chasing the red-hot Red Sox.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's something we got to start talking about more.
We haven't been.
The Sox are alive.
Yeah.
Shockingly, and they got reinforcements coming.
They've been written off.
And they've had so many big injuries, and a lot of these guys are on the way back.
Yeah.
Like the Sox they're coming alive. They're a team that will be reckoned with, I think, in the second half. But Shohei Ohtani, after getting the news, you're going to stay in LA. We're going to give up big prospects. We're going to try to bolster this roster. Complete game, one-hit shutout in the first game, and just hit his 37th home run in the second game. It's incredible. Here's Steve Phillips, our TSN MLB analyst, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. How much would you have paid for a ticket in Detroit today, Steve?
Well, I'm from Detroit, and somewhere I think there's a statue of me there, so I would hope that maybe I could get a free ticket to the game. But if I couldn't get the free ticket, I would probably pay full price for a ticket to get in. I would. I mean, listen, it's a great show. There's no question about that. Now, the Detroit Tigers are a little bit like the Washington Generals, who played the Globetrotters, right? That they put on a good show, but they always lose. But Ohtani is just out of his mind. And, he pitched great today. His command was fantastic. He hit every spot, never threw it down the middle of the plate. Now, it's not a very good lineup. The Tigers' offense is one of the worst in baseball. But he pitched great. There's no doubt about it. I still don't think it justifies not trading him. I would still trade him. It just doesn't make to me. It's baseball malpractice. I've said that. I don't understand it. Look, they're not going to the playoffs. They just happen to be. They're playing well, but they beat an undermanned Yankee team. They beat the Pirates and they beat the Tigers. Now they're going to come to Toronto, and then 18 of their next 22 games are against teams that, if the season ended today, are playoff teams. And the four games that are not against playoff teams are against the Seattle Mariners, who are playing like a playoff team right now, who are right on their heels. And so this will be a real test. I mean, and everybody else is going to get fortified too. I just don't see them leapfrogging. They're behind the Yankees, they're behind the Red Sox, and then they're obviously behind the three wildcard teams, and they're behind the three division leaders. So, they're sixth in the wildcard hunt right now. I don't see how they're going to be able to do it. It just didn't make any sense to me to not trade them. But I mean, here's the logic as to why they didn't, is that, remember, Artie Moreno, the owner, put the team up for sale last year. And then he pulled it off the market for whatever reason. Didn't get the offers he was looking for, anything else. But he's not in this for the long haul. And so one of the things he had said is, I don't know why everybody's talking about trading Ohtani, because he's worth $20 million to us in revenues for the final 2 months of the season if he's on our team versus if he's not. And I don't know that that's an accurate number, but here's the thing, is that if you were to trade him, you're saving $10 million in salary because he's making $30 million, a third of the season left. And so you'd save $10 million and you'd get 4, 5, 6 prospects. And the value of prospects, to understand that when they get to the big leagues and they're playing for minimum salary for 3 years, then they're for arbitration for the next 3 years, and you've got control of them for 6 years, each of those guys is worth anywhere from $50 to $150 million, depending upon how good of players they are over that period of time. And so but he doesn't recoup that. He's in it for the payday. So once Ohtani leaves, he'll put the team back up for sale. And what he wanted was one more year of getting the revenues from Ohtani. And then so it's not the right thing for the future of the organization to hold him, but it's the right thing from a business perspective from an owner who's on his way out.
So from that standpoint, with that logic being the case, I guess what you're saying is it's really not a gamble because no one's going to actually take heat for this in LA. Like, if it blows up in their face and they miss the playoffs and Ohtani leaves and then Marino sells the team, like, if you're an Angels fan, who do you hate? Who do you protest against?
Yeah, right. I mean, you probably, I would still get frustrated at Artie Moreno because it's not in the best interest of the baseball team. The idea of how can we win the most number of games for the most number of years, right? That's really the goal, is how can we win as many games as possible for as many years as we can to be able to do it. And this isn't the way to do it. And even signing Ohtani back isn't the way to do it. Because think about it this way, that if they keep Ohtani to the end of the year, and let's say they sign him, they've got less of a chance of winning moving forward than they have right now, because they're paying him $30 million. To sign him, they're going to have to pay him $50 to $55 million, maybe $60 million, twice as much money. And that's the money that would go to signing players that would play around him if he were making $30 million. And so they've got less of a chance of winning moving forward if they sign him than they have right now, because if they can't make the playoffs with him now, when you pay him twice as much, you definitely aren't going to have a chance to make it to the playoffs. And so I don't know. It's one, when you're the owner of the team, you can decide to do whatever you want. And if you're in it for the short-term payday, then from a business perspective, I understand not trading him, but from a baseball perspective, it is malpractice. It's not the way that you run a franchise to try to win as many games as possible for your fan base. This is about the owner maximizing, squeezing every last dollar out of Ohtani, and then let the next owner worry about what happens when he's gone.
Steve, how much of this could be about things we don't see on the surface? Like, obviously, they've been fielding offers for Ohtani before they took him off the trade market. How much of this could just be that they were underwhelmed by the offers? The offers, because he's a rental, because he's going to be hitting free agencies, and teams could say, look, we can get this guy for free without giving up half our farm system in a few months. Why would we do it now? Is there some validity to the idea that maybe they were just underwhelmed?
Well, it comes down to what your expectations are. I look at it and say, all right, can I get packages much better than just a compensation draft pick for next year? And the answer to that is assuredly, absolutely yes.
Right.
Now, is it the same as, getting 3 blue chip players for Ohtani the hitter, plus 3 blue chip players for Ohtani the pitcher, which he's the best hitter and best pitcher available at the deadline? You may not get, the value of the pieces of Ohtani. You're going to get some volume discount, so to speak, in business terms. And so, but even that, it's still worth doing. Whatever the market says the value is, it's better than a compensation draft pick. And from my perspective, like in straight business terms, from a baseball perspective, it really is an easy one. They're much better served to trade them than to keep them. And I think the odds makers have them at an 8% chance of making the playoffs is what I heard. They've got an 8% chance of making the playoffs. So, they passed up an opportunity to restock their farm system in a significant way for an 8% chance of making the playoffs. And that, in a world where we go through analytics and values and everything else, that's not a good business decision.
With Steve Phillips, our TSN MLB analyst. Again, the Angels making a trade yesterday and an announcement that Shohei Ohtani is going to stick around beyond the trade deadline. No announcement out of the Blue Jays in terms of who's going to stick around and who they're actively seeking out. We've been through this many times, Steve, about what we believe they might be looking at. What I've noticed is the second base position's coming up a lot, like in terms of those details and the analytics and how defensively poor that position's quite frankly been throughout the season. Is it possible they look towards that position and try to find an upgrade, or it's not out there? You're going to have to live with what you got, and you're just going to have to try to basically salvage whatever you can.
Yeah, I think they'll look at it. I figured they were going to look for, I guess what you could do is you could platoon Merrifield with Varsho in left. Although I want Merrifield in the lineup every day.
Yeah, exactly.
So, right. And so, but here's the thing: when he plays some second base, he's not the best defender anymore. He is. He's okay, but he's not the best defender anymore.
No.
And so, but there's some trade-offs, and if that is your big deal, is your second base defense is weak. But yet you're getting a 295 batting average with a 350 on base percentage and a guy that's actually hitting some home runs. Like I take that, and so they can look there. I figured they'd look more in the outfield or some, right-handed bat. I figured a Tommy Pham from the Mets or a Mark Canha from the Mets who could platoon with Belt and or Varsho in the outfield, DH and outfield and go that route with it. As those guys likely are going to end up being available. So we'll see what they end up landing. But I think that they'll look to fortify some offense. I would, we saw that bullpen get so fatigued, and it's really a factor around the league right now. Watching and covering every game and every team, it's not just the Blue Jay issue. Bullpens are exhausted right now. The Orioles, Yenier Cano is exhausted right now. Colomb, the left-hander there, is exhausted right now. And Alexi Diaz with the Reds got knocked around a little bit the other day. And so everybody's, hit that wall. They'll get a second win or a third win maybe at this point of the season. But I think adding as much high-leverage arms as you can to the bullpen is a good way to consider doing things right now. I don't know if the Jays are going to do anything with their starters because they've got Manoah and Ryu back in the mix now. Kikuchi threw well. And I thought that if Verlander were available, and I don't think he's going to be available, he would be a potential play just because they kicked the tires on him each of the last two times he was a free agent. He chose not to go there, but it's a short-term deal. It wouldn't get in the way of money to sign Guerrero or Bichette for the long term. And he's pitching like an ace again. He's got a sub-2 ERA over his last 8 starts. But I think with that, the Mets are probably going to end up holding him.
Well, you mentioned Ryu, who was in L.A., I think, pitching a side session when they were in L.A. a couple of days ago, which would suggest, he's right around the corner, and then that leads to a 6-man rotation. But with what you just said about the arms in the bullpen on fumes, and I think most notably what you're seeing that is, like, Eric Swanson is a mess right now. He's got nothing left in that arm, and he's already pushing up against, like, innings limits and appearance numbers in terms of what he's done throughout his career. If you go to a 6-man rotation, like, they're probably going to take an arm out of the bullpen, will they not? And if so, how can you accomplish what you're talking about? Guys needing a breather out there if you're going to possibly take an arm out of the bullpen. Yeah,
no, I think it's a legitimate factor there, and it may be that when one of the starters is not necessarily. Instead of a side session, maybe they're available for some length out of the bullpen if it's needed during the course of the week as well. So you're right. They're going to have to do some juggling with it. And for me, I think that you've got to be more concerned about the bullpen than the rotation right now and going with a 6-man rotation. But, you've got some scheduled off days to work in there, so we'll see how that shakes out. But, this is where the analytics department, the load maintenance department comes in. They'll really look at what they need to do. Having roster flexibility is always helpful with that, so that, maybe what you can do is you go short one reliever, but you've got some flexibility where when one guy gets some usage, you send him out and you bring in a fresh arm. And you make sure that a couple of your relievers, one guy at AAA, one guy at the major league level, don't throw in the same day, so that if you do need, some reinforcements, you've got guys you can swap. So there's a way to manage your minor league system over the next few weeks until rosters expand in September a little bit to be able to get you through the month of August.
Okay, Steve, so we love having you on because you see everything. You're not just looking at the Toronto market like we are. And if you're looking at the chasers for that third and final wildcard spot that the Blue Jays currently occupied, we know you don't believe in the Angels. Even though they could come back, they could come into Toronto tomorrow, only 3 games back of the Blue Jays. What about the other two teams? You got the Yankees 2.5 back, and Aaron Judge apparently on the horizon of returning. And you've got the resurgent Boston Red Sox, only a 1.5 back when they were left for dead by baseball, finding some wind. Which team concerns you more?
Yeah, I would say probably right now the Red Sox, only because they're going to get Chris Sale back. He's throwing a bullpen. He's throwing a live batting practice today. He'll do a rehab start next week, and then he'll be, likely working his way back in. They're also getting Tanner Houck back in. They're also getting Garrett Whitlock back in. Trevor Story's on a rehab assignment. He's going to come back in and play shortstop, and so they are getting reinforcements. Now the challenge they have is all of these guys I mentioned are guys who were healthy, got hurt, came back healthy, got hurt again. And so what do they do for adding depth right now and to protect themselves? Because what we've seen, all we can judge about the future is what we've seen in the short-term past, and that is a lot of these guys end up getting dinged up every couple of weeks. And so they've got some questions, but they're playing out of their minds. Alex Cora isn't going to get the Manager of the Year award this year, but this is his finest managing season ever. They have no business with this team being where they are right now. They just don't. I mean, you go through this club, you think, who scares you offensively? Yet they're 5th in runs scored in baseball. Like, I don't know. I mean, Yoshida's a good player, but Verdugo, Cassis hasn't hit for any average at all. He walks a lot. He's got a little bit of pop, and he's starting to come along. But other than Devers, nobody really scares me in their lineup. Yet they're scoring runs, and they piece together the pitching. Pavetta's been great as a reliever, so they always throw an opener in front of him, and he comes in on the bullpen and pitches great. But they have really had to piece things together, and so they are getting reinforcements. So they worry me a little bit. The Yankees just worry me because even when Judge, you know why they worry me? Because I watched Aaron Judge run, and he's not right. Mm-hmm. Like he's running, and what's going to end up happening is, and I think it's his right big toe, he's going to end up with a left knee strain or a left hip strain because the compensation injury will take place. The way he was running, he was running as hard as he could. And I'm looking at it going, yeah, but he's still protecting his toe. And so he's not right. And when you start to swing and it's his back foot that he has to spin on and rotate on, we saw DJ LeMahieu last year who could barely, drive the ball out of the infield when he had a broken toe. Judge, the same thing. He's a 6th. It's a big toe, but he's 6'7" and 280 pounds of weight torquing on that back foot where he's going to rotate. I really am concerned about that. And I don't, they don't have enough offense around him. And, Rodon won yesterday against the Mets, but he's not quite right either. And it's been kind of a bust this year. So I do like the Red Sox a little more than the Yankees right now.
Yeah, I don't think you can argue against that. You look at how good they've been really since the All-Star break, maybe beginning of July, they're red hot right now. Boston's red hot. And Jay's off today, back in action tomorrow night. It's going to be a fun weekend up here in Toronto with Shohei in town. Always great catching up with you, Steve. We'll do it again soon.
You bet. Thanks for having me, guys.
Steve Phillips, our TSN MLB analyst, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Build your next dream Toyota at Maple Toyota and check out Maple Toyota's pre-owned inventory arriving daily. It's time to Toyota. Visit mapletoyota.com. Yeah, they just took a couple off the Braves.
15-5 in the last 20.
Yeah. Like Boston, like Steve brings up a good point. Reinforcements are coming, but they're like Chris Sale is just always hurt.
That's the thing.
So even if he returns, you're bracing for him to get injured again, and you're not getting the same guy that was pitching 4 or 5 years ago.
No,
like that guy's not coming back.
No, you think you have to feel like this is a bit of a a nice little run they're on, but can they sustain it? It's two different things.
It's very difficult to do, but what's clear and what has been clear all year with the Jays is eventually they're going to run into their division again. They got Baltimore in town for 4, I believe, next week.
Yeah.
You got to start winning games against the AL East.
That's true.
Like it's probably
Achilles heel.
Yeah, it's probably going to make or break, your season. They're 7-20 against the AL East this year after a really good start. I think they were 6-2 or something to start the year.
Yeah, it's
4-2 anyway.
Right?
Like
it shouldn't be that way.
No,
there's no real excuse for that.
No, you've got to be able to compete with these teams, and
because
they're not going to slow down.
Yeah, it's actually them and the Yankees are the only 2 teams in the East with sub 500 records against the East. And theirs is a lot worse than the Yankees. The Yankees are 13-17. So, but you're right. You're in the toughest division in baseball. You got to play well against it.
Yeah, and you're going to have a lot of games in September against those teams.
Yeah.
It's coming. So,
it's going to be fun. It's a real race.
Yeah, you got a race here.
It's a real race.
Yep, you got a race. And I think baseball's listen, Rob Manfred got an extension yesterday and no one even talked about it.
No.
That is a compliment to a commissioner. When no one pays attention to you getting an extension, that means people are actually kind of happy with what's happened recently.
Yeah.
They're happy with the pitch clock, some of the rule changes. I think the expanded wild card allows for more teams to focus on what's going on with the playoff race.
Very true.
Listen,
he pulled it out of the fire too, because this guy was close to the edge when he was calling the World Series trophy a piece of tin.
Yep.
And he mishandled the Astros cheating scandal by a lot of estimations. I mean, there was a lot of gripes with
Big
Rob
time.
Manfred.
Even the CBA being what it was.
CBA.
But once you get the CBA done, you make some rule changes that people agree with. You got a relative amount of parity in the league. It's like, all right, cool. Go stand over there, Manfred. We don't care about you anymore.
Tell you what, man. Get the product right, and everything else is fine.
Yeah,
they've improved the product so dramatically in my mind. I just think it's so much more fun to watch now.
Yes,
because the game moves.
Yes, it moves. I actually find myself there's like an element of anxiety if I feel like either the pitcher or the hitter is stalling too long.
Yeah,
like I'm waiting for the pitch clock to get up on the screen. Like if it's not up yet, usually they put it up with like 8 seconds, maybe when it hits single digits. And I'm like, wait a minute. Like I think it was Merrifield the other night. He was taking his time doing something. I'm like, get in there, man.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?
It's so true. And it's one of those things like you get like it's so much fun to watch, so much more fun to watch. It's just like it's one of those moments you look at and you go, how did they not come up with this?
Right.
Like what took so long? Why did they just allow guys to just wander around the field?
Yeah.
Itching their jock.
It's wild.
Chewing their chaw.
And you can step off the mound as much as you want. Yeah. You can go out and talk to him 15 times.
It was so dumb.
You can bring a guy in to throw one pitch and then pull him.
I mean, all this stuff, it's like
it's not, we sound old, but it's like these kids these days, they have no idea.
No.
What baseball used to be like when you would get situations where you would have 3 pitchers in an inning. A righty come in to face a righty, then a lefty to come in and face a lefty, then another righty to come in and face a righty. They'd be stepping off the mound 15 times. The catcher would go back and forth 10 times. It was crazy.
I know. And I'll tell you what, I've been down in the States a little bit this summer watching some AAA games. Having watched AAA games where they have the challenge rule, when you're watching Major League games, you're like, you got to challenge that. Like it's such
probably
a no-brainer. It's coming. And it's a no-brainer. It's like the line rules at Wimbledon. Like when they brought that in, it's going to be, you're going to make the umpires antiquated and redundant. No, they're still umpires, but guess what? They get the line calls right. Guess what? Get the strike calls right. There's no reason not to.
Probably coming.
It's coming for
sure. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of time.
It works in AAA ballparks fine.
Yeah.
Like there's very little complaint about it.
Well, like I think that's going to be certainly probably the next big installment.
Yeah.
Is effectively a robotic strike zone.
Yeah,
like you don't even need, my argument would be, why even allow the challenge?
Well,
like if you have it and you're going to bring it in anyway, then I guess just go with it.
I think the reason the challenge system appeals to people is because there's still a human element. Because you have to decide which pitches you're going to complain about.
Right?
And there's a certain strategy to that.
Yeah, there is.
Like I was at a game.
You lose your challenge or whatever.
I was at a game last week and last weekend, I guess it was. And a guy challenged a pitch that was right down the middle. And then they play the replay up on the big screen, and you see that the ball was right down the middle.
Right.
And the manager's going, what are you doing challenging that?
So embarrassing.
Because you only get 3 challenges, right? And you lose them if you're not correct. So you get 3 challenges for the entire game as a team.
Yeah.
And if you just start pissing them away with ego calls where you're just mad that you missed the pitch, which apparently this guy was because the ball was right down the middle, like mid-thigh.
Yeah.
Like perfect
How
strike.
dare you not take that?
Like it was a fat pitch essentially and he challenges it.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a certain fun and drama to that.
Yeah. It's kind of like, timeouts in the NFL. That's like a strategy and a viewing experience within the game.
Right.
It's like, does this coach know how to use a timeout? When should you use your timeout?
Exactly.
There is a strategy behind that.
But I'm with you. Like,
But I think at some point, if the levee's going to break, then just allow the whole thing to pour out.
Total robot.
Like if you're going there anyway, I guess is my point.
Why take the intermediate step?
Why waste time?
Yeah.
If it's going to happen anyway in 5 years, why take tiptoe around it? Just do it. Just
I
go.
think that's probably why it's not coming in next year. I think they were originally talking about bringing it in next year, and at the All-Star break, the commissioner said it won't be in next year because they're trying both systems in AAA, right? There's certain games where it's just robo umpire. There is a human behind the plate, but he's not calling the balls and strikes.
Right.
There is an earpiece you're getting the system feeding you the call, and you are relaying it to the pitcher.
Yeah. That's what's probably going to happen.
Yeah. I think that's probably what's going to happen.
Yeah, but no, baseball, I mean, you can talk about the fundamentals of the game when it comes to the shift.
Yeah.
I guess pitching strategy is a part of it now. Like, you can't – a pitcher's got to either finish the inning or be up there for 3 batters.
Right.
That is a change in terms of strategy back in the day for sure. I'm sure there's National League purists who don't love the fact that the DH exists now. But I think the average fan would sit here and say, I'm check. Like, I'm cool with all this, and it's still baseball. You're not watching it and saying, I can't picture what sport this is. I can't figure this out. I'm blind to what I'm watching here. Still baseball.
You're right. Like they've only
27
improved
outs
the game
and everything.
The game's the same.
Yeah.
If anything, some of the pitchers that were not in great shape, they've been hurt by this.
Yes.
They can't take the breather, can't walk around the mound, catch their breath.
Yeah.
Maybe Alek Manoah. I don't know how much that bothered Alek Manoah.
Batters, too. Like, there were some batters, like Nomar Garcia-Pera could not exist in this world.
Imagine that.
Like, Nomar could not, he couldn't play in today's game.
Yeah.
It would just be strike 1, strike 2, strike 3, get the hell out of here.
If Brian Harmon played baseball,
yes,
Mr. Waggle,
he'd be out.
The champion waggler of the year. He could not play.
He could not exist
with a pitch clock.
He could not exist with a pitch clock. Can't happen. All right, Marcellus Wiley will join us in just over half an hour. Try to get you more updates on the status of Joe Burrow down at Bengals camp. Ben Verlander as well on Shohei Ohtani, what he's accomplished today down in Detroit, and start teeing up Jays Angels beginning tomorrow night. We'll get to role play level of concern. We'll do that next.
You can never ask me to stop drinking. Do you understand?
I do. I really do.
One bourbon, one scotch, one beer.
All right, here we go, Dave. Role play level of concern. We haven't done this in a while. You've played role play before.
Great game.
Great game. You know how this works. So we're going to go around the table here. We're each going to be basically applied a person, a situation, a thing, and we got to make a call on how we would react to whatever that happens to be and what that situation happens to be.
Got it.
And basing that reaction off of a level of concern. So pint on the patio, no concern whatsoever. Maybe a 6-pack and a shot, mediocre concern. You could play Marty Wildwood, which is a lot of concern, but not nuclear options.
6 Busch Light, 6 Bud Light, and I love them, tall boys.
There you go. And then, of course, there is a full-blown nuclear meltdown reaction, which would be...
You can never ask me to stop drinking.
There you go. That's Nick Cage. All right.
course.
So very simple stuff. All right. Let's get rocking here. Dave, you're playing the role of TJ Brody. Your name's been in the rumor mill a lot, right? The Leafs are still up against it in the cap situation. Brad Treliving, he's aware of who you were back in Calgary. Who knows how he feels about you today as the Maple Leaf GM? What is your level of concern that you will not be a Maple Leaf to start the season?
I am a non-alcoholic pint on the patio.
It's all good for you, TJ
All
Brody.
good for me
All
because
good for you.
if I am TJ Brody, and what
Yes.
I'm saying to myself, Mr. Hayes, is that have you seen our defense corps in Toronto this year? Like, if they lose me, and as much as I'm sure they would love to lose my $5 million cap hit, look, they'd love to lose $1, off the cap. Like, every dollar matters. And $5 million of them would go a long way. But if they lose my $5 million, like, what are we looking at here? We got Morgan Riley and John Klingberg, an all offense first pairing,
Yeah.
which I'm not sure that's going to go too well in the playoffs.
No.
You've got Jake McCabe, Timothy Liljegren. Are we counting on Connor Timmins and Mark Giordano to be our guys?
Yeah.
Like, this is a thin gruel unit right now, man. So they need me as much as they don't want my 5 schmil
Yeah.
on the numbers. They need me badly. They need my body on the blue line, and they need me to have a bounce back season. And I am going to.
Yes. Well, I like that confidence. You make a very compelling case. I have thought at times, TJ, that maybe you would go on the marketplace to change the complexion of the defense, right? It would be a 1-for-1 type of situation or a package deal where you're included going the other way. And maybe Brad Treliving tries to make a change to his defense core with that. But now that we're into late July, that doesn't seem as likely anymore. And I think that's an appropriate level of concern for you. I think a non-alcoholic drink, not even on the patio, possibly inside.
And here's the other thing.
No concern.
Here's the other thing. I'm coming into a contract year, and I want to get paid.
Right.
So I'm going to perform.
You're going to perform. Okay, I like it. All right, I'm playing the role of Jays skipper John Schneider. What is my level of concern that my front office will not bolster the lineup at the trade deadline? I got to be honest, based on my experience a year ago, where they didn't do a lot.
Not much.
They really didn't do a lot. They brought in a couple of arms in the bullpen, but I wouldn't consider what they did last year bolstering the lineup.
No.
They added to it to an extent. But when I define bolster, that means you have really injected talent into my roster.
Right.
I got to be honest, the way that this front office operates, I saw Jeff Passan's report that maybe ownership isn't really all in on this team or isn't feeling like they're worthy of an open checkbook. I'm going to play some Marty Wildwood right now.
6 Busch Light, 6 Bud Light, and I love them, tall boys.
Yeah, Marty Wildwood. I expect some pieces to be added. Again, though, this is me defining the word bolster.
Yeah.
Bolster means you're bringing in pieces that I don't even have to think of. Like, that guy's playing.
That's right.
That guy's in the rotation. Or that guy is a high leverage arm that I can rely on in the 7th, 8th, 9th inning. I want to see that happen. I look at my current standing and I realize I'm in a wild card spot. Why wouldn't my front office try to bolster this lineup? But based on the way they operate, how conservative they can be, reports from Passan that maybe ownership is not overly keen on big money being spent.
Yeah.
Marty Wildwood right now. Marty Wildwood.
Yeah. A dozen tall boys.
That's a lot of booze.
That's quite a bit. I mean,
Yeah.
they're light. They're light.
Yeah, and he loves them.
He loves
You
them.
got to remember that. Marty loves those beers.
He loves them. But look, I mean, I can't say I can offer much of a counter argument. I mean, we know how conservative these guys are. We all know about the sustainable winning philosophy.
Yeah, team control.
Team control.
Yep.
The idea that, you never go too far in one direction. You always keep your options open. And you're right. The track record, not exactly an all-in type of scenario. But the only thing I will say that maybe makes you worry or maybe gives you some faith that they might veer from that is in that same passing report, they did talk about how maybe Ohtani could land in Toronto. So
now that has come and went. It
that's
is
come
gone.
and went.
now.
I understand. But I'm just saying, like, the passing report kind of gave conflicting information.
Sure.
At one hand, it was like, well, they don't want to spend any money, but they would spend money on Ohtani, right? And the other thing is, if you're Shapiro and Atkins, don't you have to be looking in the rear view a little bit? Like, we just talked about the Red Sox surging. We just talked about the Yankees getting Judge back. We just talked about the Angels, as remote a possibility as it is. They got the best player on the planet. They're 3 games back if they finish out this game tonight.
Ohtani just hit
Detroit.
another home run.
Okay, he's got 2 home runs and a complete.
So they're 3
one-hitter.
back. They're coming up. They're 3
Yeah,
back.
so they're 3 back, and they're going to get Trout back at some point.
Yes.
Because the hamate injury is a 4 to 8 week recovery, and I think, August 1st would be 4 weeks.
Yeah.
They're going to get
probably in the next month or so.
In August, they're getting Trout back. So if I'm looking in the rear view, I don't want to be too conservative. I gotta step on the gas a little bit.
Listen, I agree. Playing the role of Brian Hayes, I would say that I think they better bolster the roster. I think they owe it to the clubhouse, the fan base. Listen, you've gone this far. Baseball's a long season. You're into late July. You're in the race. You're in the hunt.
Right.
You've got a very good team. You don't have a perfect team, and no one expects you to become perfect as of August 2nd. But I'm sorry. Again, it's an interpretation of the term bolster. A depth arm that they might use at some point, a bench piece that they could. That's not bolstering your chances. That's basically telling the clubhouse, whoever's in here is going to get us to the promised land. I would like to see them add someone that adds juice. It's like, this cat's going to help you get there.
That's exactly it.
That's bolstering. And I'm not convinced it's going to happen. I hope I'm wrong. I'm not convinced. All right, Dave, you're playing the role of Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick's got a lot of pressure on him, it would appear, this year. A lot of people are starting to turn on Bill, which was inevitable because he treats people so horribly.
Yes.
In the media, anyway.
The media, for sure.
Right. It's not personal necessarily. It's not like he's a criminal. But the way he treats, it's just the same song and dance all the time. He can't lighten up. He can't stop. So you're playing the role of Bill Belichick. Level of concern, this is a make or break season for you in New England.
I'm not concerned.
No.
I don't drink alcohol during the football season.
Wow.
Because I'm Bill Belichick.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you're all business.
Give me club soda with a twist of lime.
Nothing? You missed the playoffs last year, Bill.
Are you aware of who I am?
Yes, I'm aware of who you were.
I am the greatest football coach.
Are you without Tom Brady? Okay.
I am.
Interesting.
I am. Brady or none, I am great. I got news for you. I am not concerned. Robert Kraft is my pal.
Yeah.
Robert Kraft owes me half the franchise problem for what I've done.
Can't argue with you on that one, Bill.
And guess what? I've been underestimated before. The Brady-Belichick era was declared dead after our 4th Super Bowl, our 5th Super Bowl. We won 6. I got news for you. I ain't going anywhere. I'm 71 years old. Greg Popovich,
He's got a new
my
deal.
senior, just got a new deal coaching the San Antonio Spurs at age 75, I think. I'm going to get another deal.
I'd have a little bit more concern if I were Bill Belichick, but you can't argue with the track record. You can't argue with the fact that Robert Kraft is going to be incredibly loyal and should be. And it's not as if the Patriots have been a disaster without Brady. Like, they haven't been an embarrassment.
Been to the playoffs.
Yes, been to the playoffs.
Without Brady.
Last year, injury issues. Mac Jones has got to get going.
Yeah.
He's got to perform for them this year, especially in the conference they're in, and even more so the division they're in. Where if Tua stays healthy, Miami might win that division. No one's talking about that. It's all Bills and Jets right now. Miami might have the best roster once you get past the quarterback position.
If Tua stays healthy. Hell of a hypothetical.
Which I'm not willing to put money on. All right, I'm playing the role of William Nylander. What is my level of concern that if I really want to stay in Toronto, I'm going to have to sign for less than $9 million per season? I get a little bit of concern on that. I got to be honest with you. I'm not going to get crazy because I'm confident in who I am, and I understand a timeline where if I play it out and I score 40 plus again this year, I believe I could stand strong on the idea of getting at least 9. I'll say a 6-pack and a shot, though. There's a little bit of concern here that Brad Treliving is trying to reset things. And I got to be honest, some of my brethren around the league not necessarily helping me.
No.
Timo Meyer locking in on the deal he did. Sebastian Aho. I think I'm a great player. I know I'm a great player, but Aho, I got to give him some respect. Even though he's finished, he's a pretty good player.
No doubt.
Really good player. And he signed for 9.75. I think if everything were equal, a lot of people would say, if Aho signed that yesterday, I should sign today for probably $750,000 less.
Yeah.
Maybe minus another $1, get into the 8s.
8.9.
But I don't have to sign today. I don't know if I'm going to have a spot in Toronto, though, if I really stay strong on this one, though. There's got to be a little bit of concern for William Nylander. There has to be, that he may not quite touch 9. 8.75, I think, is probably on the table right now. Wouldn't be surprised at all. Maybe a little bit less than that. Maybe 9 on the nose, which would, in fact, get me to what we're talking about here. 10, never going to happen. Never going to happen.
I'll tell you what, Willie, you're on to something. I'd add a couple shots to that order.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I'd add a couple shots to that order.
Yeah, you might be
Because
right.
if you were bold enough to play that game of chicken with a little guy named Kyle Dubas.
Yes. When you were
on
an
your previous
RFA.
deal, when you were an RFA, and you went to the 11th hour,
Yep.
December 1st, we all know the story, and you came out of it looking pretty good. Even though in retrospect, people have said you played for less, that deal was widely heralded as a very
It's a win for William Nylander.
friendly deal.
Absolutely.
Because there are a lot of GMs that I talked to around that time that said Lou Lamoriello and many hardline GMs would have made you play in the KHL that season, just
Yes.
to set a tone,
Yes.
just to set the bar on what we're doing here. We're not playing. We're not fooling around. And here's my worry for you, Willie. Brad Treliving is coming to town, and I'm not saying he wants to play the bad cop to Kyle Dubas' good cop, because Kyle Dubas was a very good cop. He
Very
treated
good cop
you
for the
boys
players.
very well. But I will say this: Brad Treliving's got nothing to lose. Like if this thing goes sideways, no one's blaming Brad Treliving.
Right.
It's the die has been cast by the previous regime.
Yes.
Brad Treliving is just trying to salvage what he can salvage here in a capped out situation. So Brad Treliving can take a shot here at trying to reset the way these players are treated.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to take the shot with you.
Well, I think you might be right, and that's why again I got some concerns, and I might have to listen to you. I might have to add a couple of tall boys here.
Yeah.
Because I do think he's got his eyes on me in particular.
Yeah.
And understanding what my value is, and I think getting back into character here that is Brian Hayes. I think Treliving's probably just accurately appraising what William Nylander is.
Yeah.
And based on what we talked about last hour, about how these players, there's a real opportunity for the players to take advantage of this situation and have it perceived as they're really giving back, and it's a heart and soul play, and we want to be here, and all we want to do is win. There's a real opportunity for Treliving because there's a large portion of the fan base that is begging the GM to finally smack back when it comes to negotiations.
No doubt.
And if he were to say, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that, or trade one of them, that's probably a win in the eyes of a lot of fans.
I totally agree.
Be a lot, because there are a lot of fans that don't want to see the core four back.
Yes.
Just want to see change.
Yeah.
They've been, I think, quieted because the team has leaked it out that they want to keep these guys.
Right.
So they're like, all right, I'm yelling into the abyss here. It's not going to matter.
Shanny ain't listening.
Right. He ain't listening. And listen, if it fails again, I'll yell again saying, I told you last summer. But July 27th, I'm not doing it.
Right.
But if change were to happen and Brad Treliving were the one to spearhead that and move on from one of these guys, let's say it's Willie, there'd be a lot of people, regardless of what would come back, they would look at that as, we got the guy who finally said, you're not running this place anymore.
That's right.
And I realize I got to have change.
I think you're right.
And he would be, I think, he'd be saluted for that by a lot of people.
And I think it's a dangerous game of chicken that William Nylander's playing here.
Yeah. If he really wants to be here.
Yeah. Like you better order. Maybe I'm not saying a dozen tall boys. I'm saying, have some vodka on hand.
Okay. Yeah, you could be right about that. All right, Marcellus Wiley in about 20 minutes. Ben Verlander still to come as well. Might slide in some role play level of concern after dark as well. Dave Feschuk of the Star in here. I'm Brian Hayes. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050N on TSN 4. OverDrive continues. Brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. We'll get to our best bets later in the hour. Jay's off tonight. Back in action tomorrow night. We'll get into the decision by the Canadian women's team as well to avoid doing media down at the World Cup. They will do the mandatory media prior to the match, and they obviously were all aware of what's at stake, especially considering Nigeria beat Australia today. So Australia, Canada wins, they're through. If they get a draw, they're probably
they're through.
But
they can lose and be through, too, if Nigeria loses and then they win the goal differential.
Yeah, but not likely Nigeria loses to Ireland. I mean, it's possible. But listen, it's a big match. It's a big stage. It's the World Cup. But for whatever reason, their camp has decided collectively we're not doing anything, and we're not really going to open the doors to the media either. And the explanation I can't figure it out because I don't think they really gave one other than we're trying to concentrate on a match.
Yeah.
But come on. I mean,
It's ridiculous.
it just seems silly. And obviously this is spearheaded likely by the coach, likely by the veteran players.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'd be curious about is if there are any individual players on the team that really are against this because they realize this is a massive ability to take advantage of your
Yes.
profile.
Right.
And boost your profile. Because this is like doing media right now. It's not about building the game. When the spotlight's on you, the spotlight's already on you.
Right.
Right? Like you've got big matches. People understand what you're there to do. But from an individual profile standpoint, this is the biggest platform many of these athletes are ever going to get in their lives.
Without a doubt.
And for whatever reason, there's a team policy that's taking that away. That's what I would wonder if that's going to cause any issues within the room.
It's disappointing on a lot of levels. I think it's wrong-headed. It makes no sense. Like the idea that doing a couple of media interviews is going to somehow take away your focus on the match at hand. That goes against everything. All these players have been doing their entire lives is speaking to the media before matches. I mean, especially St. Clair. The veterans on this team have been through the ringer at Olympics where you're speaking to the media every day after training because they ask you to and you're supposed to. I mean, it's standard procedure to do media.
And you're coming off a win. There's no controversy right now. Like if you were 0-2, I guess that might be an explanation is you're running from it.
Right.
What are you running from? It's, hey, coming off a great match and, hey, you got a big match coming up. Like no one's –
No.
I would assume the whole Canadian Soccer Association stuff kind of factors into almost everything that happens.
I think so.
And it's a part of like, we're not doing anything for anybody right now because we're not happy with things. But
yeah, there's a lot of bitterness there. Like there's a lot of bitterness. I think the players we saw in the lead up to the tournament, they felt like they weren't being supported.
Yes.
And so maybe this is a bit of them saying, we're not doing anything extra.
Right. But are you cutting off your nose to spite your face?
They are.
Could be the case. More on that in the final hour. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.